Aren't these donuts just amazing?
Yeah, they're pretty good.
But these donut holes, they are incredible.
Sure, those ones are good too.
They're both just so good. I can't even pick a favorite.
You do know that it's just dough in a different shape, right?
This donut hole, it's just so perfectly round, elegant. It's beautiful. But these donuts, they're just so smooth. I love how I can just see right through them, and the lines of their curves are just so graceful.
They are literally the same thing.
It's just so smooth too. And you know what they say, slow is smooth, but smooth is fast. It just seems like this donut would be better for like close quarters or faster acquisition.
You're definitely not talking about donuts anymore.
But then again, these donut holes are very simple, and I feel like simplicity is really important.
I just eat them.
They both seem so good when I look at them just by themselves, but when I put them side by side, I just can't pick a favorite.
This is definitely not about donuts.
Today on Artist Arms, we're talking about red dot reticles, specifically the donut of death versus the classic dot. So I've heard several arguments from both sides about which reticle is superior and which reticle will make you faster. Now, the one argument that stood out to me the most was this one for the donut of death. And the idea is that when you go to aim, you go from a wider field of vision to narrowing until you pinpoint exactly where you want to shoot. So the idea behind this argument was that your brain can transition down into your target faster with a larger circle like the donut of death with a little dot that's in the center. So it just kind of helps your brain to go from wide to narrowed in a faster manner, which theoretically sounds like it's a thing, but is it? So I have an EOTech with the donut of death, and I have an aim point with the classic dot. I use both these optics on a regular basis, and I train with them dry firing at least 3 times a week. So I have a really good idea of how well I perform with a donut of death and how well I perform with a red dot. The results? Very underwhelming. Turns out, I'm just as fast with both. Now initially, I thought I was going to be faster with the donut of death because mentally, I felt like I was liking it more when I was first acquiring the target. But as I've trained more, I've found that there's really not a difference between which reticle I'm using as long as I'm used to the one that I have in front of me. This brings me to my next point. When you talk about reticles, you cannot neglect holds. If you don't know your holds, it doesn't matter what reticle you have. So you have to practice until you have that solid muscle memory of your holds. Now, one advantage of the donut of death is that it does have a specific 0 at the bottom of the circle, at least if you're using the EOTech. So if you 0 your dot in the center at 50 yards, the bottom of that circle is going to be your 0 for 7 yards. And it's handy to be able to have that reference. But again, if you actually know your holds very well, this kind of doesn't matter. I've seen a couple videos online where people have taken these reticles head to head to see which one made them faster, and they did have slight differences in timing between the different reticles. But one question I wish I could have asked some of them was how much did they train on one reticle versus the other? Because I think ultimately you have to love the one that you're with. You can get super good with a donut of death. You can get super good with just a basic dot. At the end of the day, this is going to be preference. I don't actually think that either one is going to make you better. It's whatever you train with, whatever your brain likes more, go for it. If you feel like your mind and your vision just likes having that donut of death rather than a basic dot, then you should go for it. But if you want something more simple and you feel a little guilty about only just getting a basic dot when there's so many fancy reticles out there, Stop it. You can go for a basic dot. There are so many guys who are freaking deadly with just a basic dot. Ultimately, you need to pick the reticle that makes you feel more comfortable and is going to motivate you to practice more, because that's actually where it matters. Doesn't matter what reticle you have, what matters is the reticle you practice with. I know for some of you watching this, you're going to think this episode was a little dumb and unnecessary, but I have heard so many people argue about this topic that I thought it was just good to throw something out there about it and to remind you guys that it's not necessarily the gear that makes us better, it's the training we do with that gear. So get out there and train, and I will see you in the next one.